All right, hey everybody, I'm Jason from So Percussion, and as you undoubtedly know, this is the Brooklyn Bound podcast. I love doing these, and this is the first conversation I'm going to have leading up to our November 4th show. We've gotten back into our space for very small audiences as well as streaming. John and Paula, you will be happy to know we upped our streaming game. You're going to look and sound great. So as I mentioned, this is John and Paula from Longleash. Welcome, you two.
Hi, thanks
Thanks
so
for
much
having
for
us.
having us.
Absolutely. So I was gathering, are you in your space in Red Hook right now? Is that your space?
Our living room.
Your living room? Yeah, exactly. Wonderful. I wish I was there. I'm in my space in Princeton, New Jersey. So you are two-thirds of it when let me back up. Longleash is doing our studio residency program. It's been a awesome and weird year for you all to be doing that because our studio hasn't always been in use, but I know that you all were up to some exciting things, and I think I think even on your organization, you've become a nonprofit. You're moving into that space, which so is in very excited for you all. But let's back up and can you give us just the kind of maybe even each individually, like how have you come to do what you do? What's been your maybe Paula, you first. What's been your journey?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I had a pretty like traditional conservatory style training and didn't really get into new music much until I had like moved to Europe to Germany for this like orchestra academy program with the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra, and it was like a really inspiring place to make music and you know everyone in that orchestra is really incredible musicians, so it was just great to like listen to everyone every day.
Mm.
um, but it's also kind of like looking around and thinking about who I am and where I'm from, originally from the Bay Area in California, and just like kind of looking at the programming and the institutional leadership and stuff and thinking about like how did I end up here.
What were my life choices that led me to this space? Yeah.
Yeah, and what sort of like questions do I still want to answer for myself in terms of like yeah, like how I fit into this whole world and stuff. So that sort of started as like, oh, I want to play more like new stuff. Like I just want to like play more stuff that's being written now that I feel like I can sort of like connect to in that like contemporaneous way. So I started doing that, and Munich is great for a lot of things, but not really like a big new music hub. So I also miss New York, so I moved back, moved back to New York, and that's where John and I met. We're also married, and yeah, we started
Congratulations.
together. Thanks.
But
um,
so you to back up, sorry to cut you off the Zoom.
yeah,
I should just apologize in ahead of time for whenever that happens. But you grew up in the Bay Area. So have you been playing, what was your, and did you go to conservatory in New York? Did you go to Juilliard? So
yeah.
the Bay Area to Juilliard. So when did you discover your instrument, and how was that? Was it like from tiny, or was it like, oh, I got, like what was that?
Yeah, it was definitely from Tiny, from like before I really knew what I was getting myself
Yeah.
into. Had I known. No, it was like a Mr. Rogers episode or something. I saw kids playing and I was like, I want to do
Awesome.
that. And yeah, like my parents were really supportive and helpful, and my like violin education stuff really like hands-on, which I definitely wouldn't have gotten to where I was without their help. Um, yeah, and then I don't know. I guess I left for college on the younger side, so I feel a little bit less connected to the Bay Area and like the music scene there, less than I would like to be. So hopefully I'll be able to fix that in the future.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
My sister lives up in the Bay. She lives in Berkeley. I grew up in Southern California, and always she's 8 years older than me, and she went to Berkeley and stayed in Berkeley, and so it was always like I was the Southern California guy that just wanted to get to Northern California all the time. It was like the just do the 6 hour drive all the time to hang out up there and really love that space. But for me, I
Berkeley's my
remember the
hometown.
moment. What's that?
Oh, sorry. Berkeley's my hometown.
Oh, nice. Okay, great, 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 great. We're finally, no, we've played there once, but we're getting out there next year.
Right.
And
Oh, nice.
yay, let's tell your family and your friends.
Yeah, I'll have to tell my parents to come check you guys out.
Absolutely, please. So John, you all met at Juilliard in school, yeah? So what was your or in New York? Like, so what was your trajectory from Little John?
From Little John to Big
John,
John.
from little medium to big John.
Or, yeah, bigger John. So I started playing music when I was really young. My older sister is a professional violinist, so I was kind of wanting to do everything she was doing, and I started on violin, but I very quickly switched to cello because there is a really phenomenal cello teacher of young kids in Louisville, Kentucky, where I grew up. Amazing teacher, and so I just really wanted to work with this guy. He was incredible. He also did like creative movement classes and things like that, and brought a lot of that into his lessons.
And he's
Awesome.
And he's
right.
still teaching there, yeah. And
Wayne
he's yeah,
Krieger.
Wayne Krieger, yeah. And he started like so many phenomenal cellists. I mean, just really a really talented teacher.
Awesome.
So I started studying in the prep department in Louisville, and then I studied with different members of the orchestra in that city. Louisville was a really special place to grow up because it's a medium-sized city, but there are so many great opportunities for arts education and arts participation. It's still a relatively cheap city, so signing your kid up for art classes or music lessons isn't as financially challenging as it is in other cities.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just had some great exposure to music and musicians, growing up in Louisville. Also with contemporary music, like the Louisville Orchestra has a long and storied tradition of commissioning and recording new work. So that was
Yeah.
always part of my music education from the beginning. And
Was
so
there a conductor there? Lawrence Leighton Smith, was he a
yeah,
conductor there? I went to Yale School of Music and he through there, right? Yeah, I think he has a history there as well. And so I think I knew a little bit and could feel that Louisville was up to cool and newer things sometimes.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was the conductor when I was a kid.
Cool.
So yeah, I would go
Wow.
see him conduct.
I had to go to I had to play at school. I would never touch the timpani. You never want to see me touch the timpani. It's just like if you see timpani and me close to each other, you leave. But I had to do, the kind of like conductor orchestra in school or whatever. And whatever. This is so tangential. There's this Bartok Concerto for Orchestra, I think, which just has this crazy like tuning timpani solo thing, the kind of thing that I should just never do. And I remember like I was just there like and he gave me a nice compliment. That was like maybe some of the only times that we interacted actually. I was like,
Yeah.
thank you. Whew.
That means so much when you have
Yeah,
something that you're kind of fretting over and someone
yeah.
takes the time to just tell you, you're on the right
You did
path.
okay. That was a big deal, and you did okay. And you should never do that again. But you helped out my conductor class, so thank you. So did you stay around in Louisville for school, or did you head out to New York as well?
I came to New York. Yeah. I had in high school, I started studying at Indiana University. So I was going up there for lessons. And that's kind of when I started getting more into performing contemporary music. I had a great cello teacher there who turned me on to some really fantastic, like mid 20th century solo cello music and started playing some of that. And then I came to New York to study at Manhattan School. Um, and I've basically been in New York ever since. And then Paul and I met when we were playing with another group before the trio.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's how we got acquainted.
Awesome. Well, so yeah, the Longleash trio, but you're gonna play some duo music at Brooklyn Bound. So I definitely want to hear about the duo music, but just in the bigger. So when you started Longleash, or when it feels like there was some maybe looking for contemporary music opportunities, make my own band to play contemporary music. Is that the like how did Longleash start, and then what does Longleash do outside of string duos?
Sure. Yeah. So,
Yeah, go
I'll,
ahead.
okay.
You can
So
get us
I'll get
started.
us started. So, um, I had played a lot of new music, mostly in like medium-sized ensembles in New York prior to forming the trio.
It wasn't me
Um,
as like a chamber. bigger chamber groups or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah. And so when the idea of the trio came up, I was really excited about having a smaller group where we could, take on repertoire that we would live with for several years. I was used to kind of you play one concert, one series of pieces once, and then you never see them again. And I was just really excited about the opportunity to really live with pieces for a longer period of time and grow with them, and have the kind of actual repertoire that you live with. So that was definitely one thing that was really exciting to me about starting the trio.
Yeah, and I think there are a bunch of pieces that we discovered when we first started that we were sort of like excavating possible repertoire, and there was like a really good amount of like really wonderful substantive pieces for violin, cello, and piano that we felt like we could really like sink our teeth into, and so we were starting off, I think, with a lot of really wonderful rep.
Yeah, what are some of those like
That we still
foundational?
haven't learned all of it already. Some of those pieces that we were still. I think at the beginning we were looking at a lot more um, Western European composers that were kind of connected to a lot of the types of festivals and workshops that we had done as students, or sort of like recent graduates. That was like this first sort of like circle of like new music community that I think we had kind of gotten into right after school or like during school, and then we were sort of able to like broaden our horizons after that, and started collaborating more actively with like composers that we knew personally, and um, branched out to a wider variety of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you say that's kind of like how it happened?
Yeah, and like right after we started the trio, I was living in Austria for that year, and so there were a lot of Austrian composers that we worked with, um, because I was there, and the trio would come over, and we would work with them and then perform, and we've
Oh,
sort of
cool.
continued some of those relationships from that time period.
Yeah,
Cool.
and so I think it's been really fun to kind of to like broaden our scope of rep, um, from that initial group of composers to people who are our peers and people who are new to us that like maybe we meet through like our Loretto project seminar, and and also like the project that we're wanting to get started with, actually, with the studio residency a bit more, which is this like alternative keyboards project. So in recent years we've sort of been looking at possibilities beyond like the acoustic grand piano, and thinking about like what can we do with like harmonium or like electromechanical keyboard or MIDI keyboard, stuff like that. So we've already had a bunch of really interesting MIDI keyboard pieces, and we're working on a harmonium piece, and
Some.
electromechanical keyboard piece that'll be fun. So
What's the electromechanical keyboard
So
like a
that piece is it's actually it's a MIDI keyboard that's triggering lights,
hmm,
a kind of lighting setup. It's by a composer, Johann Svensson, and he's done a lot of work with these pieces that are kind of duos between a human performer and these kind of machinic assemblages of electromechanic devices and lighting and things like that. So
cool.
he's creating this really cool piece for us, that has a lighting setup, and there's coordination between the sounds and the lights, and the players as well.
Amazing. That all sounds really cool. And I know you, Dan. I was actually just at Dan Truman's house. One of the reasons why I was late to our hang was rehearsing over there. But I know you had done some stuff or had some interest in the big clavier kind of thing, which is really, I love just thinking that that's one answer to it. And there's all these other kind of alternative keyboards that could be a part of a piano trio. That sounds amazing to me. And I'll say from coaching 2 times a semester, I have to coach these chamber ensembles at Princeton, and we do a lot of old piano trio repertoire. And it feels like there can be really tricky things with balance in a piano trio, and the whole like, why are you sitting right next to the low strings of the piano? What's happening here? And it feels like I'm sure you all have solved that problem just acoustically as well, but really thinking about other ways to deal with the instrumentation of these three things. It seems really fun, really cool. Um, so next show you do at Brooklyn Bound will be an alternative keyboard kind of vibe show. This one is a string duo show, which looks the email you sent of some of the composers you're playing and working with seems really, really exciting. Can you talk us through what the program is?
Yeah, maybe I'll start off with Inga's piece. So Inga Chinalina is this wonderful composer that we met through the Loretto Project, which is our annual composition seminar and concert series that we do in Kentucky.
Is that
Uh,
in Louisville or in?
some events do happen in Louisville. We've partnered with the University of Louisville there to do a few public events and some other series in and around Louisville. The bulk of the project is like it's like a very idyllic kind of retreat residency type of
Awesome.
situation where we're working on people's pieces and rehearsing.
And composers are writing for you all.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, usually we have a resident composer who's there to offer some lessons,
Hmm.
and everyone usually shares their work in different ways. So everyone learns from each other in this really wonderful way, and we cook meals together and
Mhm.
yeah, do fun things together. So,
I'm in. When's the deadline? When's the application deadline? It sounds
uh,
amazing.
yeah, it's a really special place, and we're really lucky to be able to go there every year.
You
Share the
had me with cook meals together. It's like that sounds just really nice to bring everybody
yeah,
together,
it was really
especially in these times, right?
yeah, especially this year after, having been separated for so long, we did everything we could to make sure we took every possible safety precaution before coming together. And then it was nice to just, be able to have that time together and share meals and stuff like that.
So cool. So
But
cool.
yeah, so actually Inga was at Loretto with us this past summer, and she wrote this wonderful basically trio piece that sort of like has this like modular movement situation where like some movements, or I guess like each movement is for like a different combination of us, and includes some solo movements too, and they can be performed in any order and in any combination. So yeah, it just seemed like a really great opportunity to share the solo and duo movements of hers. um, we actually haven't performed it live yet. We've recorded
Yeah.
it. So yeah,
Be a
that'll
first.
be
Perfect.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
yeah, do you want to say something about Ayana's
Yeah.
piece?
And Ayana Woods is the composer of the second piece, and she also came to Loretto with us, I think in
Cool.
2019, maybe. Um, and her duo, Mitosis, we worked with her there in Kentucky on that. It's a really wonderful piece, as the name suggests. It's kind of about this unified structure that breaks off into two different structures, and as the piece goes on, the parts gain more independence, and there's more moments for improvisation between the two of us. But we're really excited to come back and do that piece after several years. I think it's been at least 2 years since we've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That's very cool. And I know Ayana. I'm trying to think of. We've never met. I'm trying to think of where I know her work. I know she's written some percussion music. I think for Third Coast, maybe. Is she Chicago based?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's based in Chicago, and she's also a wonderful vocalist and
Mm-hmm.
bass player, electric bass player,
Awesome.
and composer, of course. So we were really lucky that she was able to join us at Loretto
Very.
a couple years ago. And yeah, this duo is really beautiful, and it's interesting too. Like some people, I think we've learned a lot about like different people's creation process, having done Loretto for many years now. And some people like just really want to like have like every detail of their piece finalized like a couple months before the workshop and the seminar, and that's always great when that happens. And some people, their process requires that we work together in person during the week, and that's really wonderful too, and we learn a lot from that process too. And that was more like Ayana's process
Yeah.
on this piece, so we really were able to try things out in real time over the week, which was fun and really nice when there's like, improvisatory components in the piece. So yeah,
Very cool.
that was,
That's awesome. And you have a third piece on the set, I believe.
yeah, we're doing Antifagus Vitsueta's I need to yeah, Shapes and Collective Space. I just want to make sure I had the title right.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
It's a brand new piece for two bowed string instruments.
Oh, cool.
One tuned to 415 and one tuned to 440. So we're gonna try out a few different options.
Nice.
Trying to convince John to use a gamba that he's borrowing for
Yeah.
the 415.
Nice. So it could
That
be it's any string instruments. My partner's viola could
Yeah.
play gamba work.
totally.
And either one can be tuned away.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the lower one. Yeah,
Right.
either one.
Cool.
My gamba already lives at 415, so it's
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
very natural
It's
application.
comfortable there.
Yeah, yeah.
His home habitat.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. So you're gonna try out a couple versions to see what feels best.
Yeah, I feel like I'm very new at gamba. Like it was my pandemic project, was
Yeah.
learning gamba, and I don't quite have the same palette of techniques as I do on the cello. So I just want to make sure that like using it in a more improvisatory manner feels comfortable and
Yeah.
is something we want to go forward with. But I'm leaning towards it.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Inti's written a really awesome percussion trio that the first thing So did, and maybe this leads to my next question actually. The first thing So did in the pandemic, you know, we had the moment that I'm sure I know everybody had, but we all had it in our own ways, and we were, had the moment of like, wait a minute, our calendar, all the things we were supposed to do, and it was a weirdly busy touring time for us, where we hadn't been touring much and it was all about to happen and it all wasn't happening. And so the first thing, we didn't know kind of what to do artistically. And the first thing we did was just put out an email address for some folks to send in, like kind of submit some stuff. It was just called listening@sopercussion.com or whatever. It's the coolest thing we did. Like for a couple months, like every day I would just listen to something new that somebody had sent. And I hadn't met Inti yet, I don't think. My partner Beth had done some playing in Missouri, and I think Inti was out there with Alarmable Sound doing some work maybe. Anyway, awesome trio that I really loved, and then got to program it with some students, and just it was one of these pieces that I first discovered in the pandemic. That's just like, awesome music's happening there that I don't know about out there. I need to search out cool things. Anyway, that's all to say that I'm very excited that there's some Inti on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met her first through the like Copeland House Cultivate Composers Institute thing that they do every year.
Awesome.
And I played a piece of hers that was also sort of a flexible instrumentation situation. Also another really beautiful graphic score situation. And the thing that I really appreciate about her pieces is that they guide you towards considering your own practice and performance habits and ways of thinking in a really interesting way, sort of make you aware of ways of approaching playing and playing with other people, make you aware of your own tendencies and choices and stuff when you're playing in a really interesting way. And so I think this piece does that too, and that's also really beautiful. It was published recently in one of the maybe like the latest episode issue of Sound American.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it has this sort of like beautiful like vanishing point kind of structure. And
what's Sound American? I kind of nodded along, but then I was realizing I don't know what Sound American is.
It's a journal that also puts out like recordings, and they commission pieces too.
Oh, cool.
I don't know exactly what their tagline is, like how they would describe themselves in like one or two sentences, but it's a really beautiful publication that also puts out like a physical I don't know, physical issues, and you can also like look at their digital archives.
Awesome.
Um,
Well, that's cool.
yeah,
I'm excited for all of this music. Um,
us too.
I am. Well, so I was alluding to the next question. There are two questions that I've usually asked at the end. One that's just really fun, but both are pandemic associated, and now we're like so far into this, you all. This is crazy. Like I
I
keep,
know.
every time I ask a question, it's like a different number of months, like we all remember when blank months ago, and I feel like somehow I feel like sometimes I'm channeling this, not channeling this, but thinking about it a bit from my kids' perspective. I was telling you my day got a little crazy because one of my kids is home from school. It's like when the pandemic happened, it was like trying to explain what that was all about and trying to explain what a coronavirus is all about. And then just keep adding these things onto it, like explaining George Floyd's murder and explaining this larger conversation that we need to have and that they need to have and the spaces we're in needs to have, and then the election, and then now, like I don't know, insurrection, I mean, like whatever, just a number of things, like to try to channel like what's happening. And then I don't know how you all are feeling or felt, and maybe this is the question, like, as an artist, like I think I went through this moment of questioning, like, what am I doing, like why am I doing this, like should I be doing something else? Should I be doing, is what I'm doing important? Yes, it's important. Why is it important? So I wonder, with your trajectory, have you, um, or are you still going through a moment of like, wait, how has my practice changed? How can it change, or does it need a change? Or what has been a part of my practice that I really want to amplify because it makes sense to me in this moment as an artist? Like what is the last, what should we call it, 19 months, like what's the number, I don't know anymore, I don't know the number, last many months, 18 months, yeah, what's your process been? And you all have been together for a lot of it as a band, like for or at least as two of you in the band.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been, we've been having a lot of these Zoom conversations about it for about
Mhm.
a year of it, so you all have been able to, I'm sure, digest some things together as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, um, you know, obviously, like the last 19 months, all of us, wish that, that all of that hadn't happened in terms of the pandemic. But, there have been some really useful and helpful realizations that I think we've all had on different fronts. And professionally and creatively, I think the, the break from the normal routine, um, I guess, has been useful in being able to, like, just step away from the feeling of needing to like do it all the time, and really thinking about like what is like, and this came out of a conversation that I had with a friend I was working with last year. So I want to give her credit for bringing this idea into my consciousness. This really wonderful singer songwriter Jean Rowe. We were working on a Carnegie Hall lullaby project thing together that was happening over Zoom. And we would have often a lot of sessions where the participants, they're busy. They might show up a little bit late. So we would always have this like period of time where we would just be like chatting on Zoom before the parent who was writing the lullaby with us would show up. And she brought up this really beautiful and important idea of making sure that you do the work that only you can do. So I think about that a lot, and I think about that a lot more now than I did before the pandemic. Is this work something only I could do, or there's the kind of work that like it would be great to do, but someone else could also step in and do it. And just, I don't know, I guess like giving that a little bit more thought and thinking about, okay, there are those projects on the back burner or whatever that I know are specific to me, things that if I don't do them, no one's going to do them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I guess making sure that you give that the time and energy and thought that they require, and make sure that, you create the conditions under which that work is possible. But yeah, I don't know. What about you?
I love that, Paula. Thanks for sharing that. I'm writing that one down as soon as we hang out. No, totally. That's pretty wonderful. Mm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was very beautiful, and I think that's a conversation we've had a lot over the past year and a half. I think we were when the pandemic hit, we were really burnt out. I think, and we had a really crazy couple months before that, and on top of it, like the pandemic, without going into too much detail, kind of coincided with like some physical issues that I was having, like kind of injury related things. And I kind of realized that I had just been going full steam for way too long.
Yeah.
And so throughout the pandemic, I was kind of dealing with limitations to playing. And it really made me reconsider the things that I was doing. Like when I'm restricted on how much I can do and what I can do physically, it makes you think like, okay, is the thing I'm doing really meaningful to me, and is it doing something for other people? Because if it's just for me, it's not enough at this point, you know. If I don't see it opening doors for other people, whether it's creative doors or doors of opportunity or financial doors or whatever, then I can't quite justify it. So yeah, I think we've been having a lot of conversations about what it is we want to do with this ensemble. And as you mentioned, you know, we have a nonprofit status now, so that has also been the impetus for having these conversations and deciding, like, you know, what do we want to use this organization for, and reevaluating the programs that we've been doing since we started, because obviously, like, we're very different people now than when we started, and the ensemble is in a very different place.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. Yeah,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
It's that Zoom delay. I was just gonna add, I think it's a question, like something, topic that we've been talking about with other musicians too, and I'm sure like you've probably heard similar conversations where people are thinking about really like the music that feels right for them, feels right for their bodies, feels generative to work on. And yeah, I think coming sort of like the feeling of coming back to this practice, a lot of people are reevaluating reevaluating that as well, like how the work and how the music makes them feel physically and emotionally and psychologically.
Yeah.
And so I think that's on a lot of people's minds too, and it's something we've talked about a lot. And I don't know if that's come up for So or not, but yeah, I don't know. I think when you're part of like a living music making practice, you know, and you're wanting to always explore that new frontier, like try out new things, it's also important to kind of keep that other side of it in mind, like, you know, like what works for my body and my mind, and what feels generative and healing.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. So I coming back to playing concerts after not for so long, it is just there's an awkward thing happening. But yeah, I'm 2 years older than I used to be. You know what I mean? Just like what feels good. Like, I know for me, I've thought a lot about, and for a while, I think So has thought about, like, you know, why do I need to be playing this music? You know, if some other percussionist would either do it better or could just kind of, you know, fill in for me at any moment, you know, maybe that's not where I'm using my skill set or something. I think so that really resonated. Probably the first thing that you were mentioning, I think, has been on my mind a while for sure. I think right now we're thinking about things like what tools do we have and how we've been using them within a certain kind of lens and community, but these tools and these skills should be applied much more broadly, I think, to that lots of interesting musicians that we want to work with, and we've been, you know, working with a lot of folks that look like me, you know, and coming out of Yale and coming out of the communities that we're a part of, you know. So it's been kind of like, you know, yeah, what skills and what tools do we have that we're really excited about that could be applied much more broadly and be really about us individually. You know, I see a lot of what you're thinking about similarly to the things we've been thinking about. And John, thinking about when you say organization, I mean, for me, it took me a second when I woke up and realized, like, oh crap, we have a non-profit organization. Like that's not something I ever thought I wanted, you know. But then to frame it, I've been having a good time being like framing it as like, no, awesome, we have this organization. Like, how can we use this? Like,
Yeah.
let's go positive with it and say like we have this infrastructure, what positive thing can we do with it? I've loved learning about the Loretta project. Sounds like pretty amazing. I'm really excited to learn about more things that you all are doing
Thanks.
organizationally. I'm embarrassed that I didn't know that already. That sounds like should be sending some interesting, composers your way when people ask about cool things to do.
Yeah,
So I promise I will do that.
that'd be
Um,
awesome.
I'm not sure if you've been counting. I still have one more question for you. We were joking around. I used to say it every time we go out there. I'd say like, I'm gonna ask 5 questions, all pretty slippery. I love learning about where you all are coming from. So it always leads to more questions. But the last question has always been a little bit more about the before times and like when So has gotten together now and started to play shows again, it's amazing how much we still draw on these like, oh, you remember when this thing happened, or this experience we had together on stage, or this experience we had together in the van, or whatever it is. And sometimes I used to think it was just kind of silly that we would tell the same stories to each other over and over. I'm sure they've changed. They've become like, crazy. Like, I'm sure like they did not happen the way we tell them. But they've also become like real, like this like, I don't know, this glue that the group has in some way of like these shared experiences and stuff. So we have all of these like kind of memories of wonderful times on stage together, or memories of times on stage together where inevitably a flower pot has shattered, or like whatever crazy thing happens to the time the computer
Yeah.
so I'd love either if it's as Longleash or as you all individually, is there, yeah, what's like a really, I can see wheels turning, Paula. But, like a just a pre-March 2020, this was a really memorable time that we shared music together in a room with other people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can think of one. Uh, so this is also sort of related to Loretto, but um, close to the Loretto Mother House where we have our seminar, there's a research forest called Bernheim Forest. And we've done a few events there when we've been down for Loretto, kind of in partnership with the Loretto Project. And the first time we went there, it was part of a series called Sonic Bernheim, where the forest would organize these concerts and talks by environmentalists or scientists, and you'd kind of collaborate on this event together. And so we did this amazing event there, and we were performing. It was like mid-August in Kentucky, so the insects are just creating this incredible noise, and we were in this beautiful room called the Sassafras Room, and we were playing a trio by Jorg Frey, this very kind of still sort of like you're out kind of like walking on this very simple landscape. And when we started it, the sun was just starting to set, and then like throughout the performance, it was just getting darker and darker. And I think by the end, it was just the light from our iPads was the only thing left.
Awesome.
And that was a really magical experience. And I think so. For me, there are a lot of moments like that where there was something unexpected about the place we were playing, or the event, or the lighting, or the insects, or things like that. So a lot of my memories, I think, in performing have to do with the environment or the room that we were in.
Yeah.
I think that's what always makes it really special for me.
Oh, very cool. Thanks for sharing that one, John. That's very, very cool. All right, Paul, you
I
get to
also
take
have
us
like
out.
a couple like short ones.
Perfect.
Do you have a funny one?
Yeah. So well, maybe I'll just share like a like earnest one, just like really quickly. A couple years ago at Loretto, we were also trying out this like high school composition workshop where the composers we were bringing to Kentucky did some composition tutoring. We also worked with the students the week before, kind of setting them up on writing these miniature pieces that they would perform themselves. And so when they performed their pieces at the end of the whole project, they just did so good, and the pieces were so good. Their intros to the pieces were awesome. And a couple of them are already in college, like going on doing their own music creation stuff, and it's been really cool to see what they've done, since then, and just thinking back to what a great job they did. with their pieces.
That's amazing. I
That,
love that. We have that with Soci too, just the it feels
mm,
like the lineage that you can start to see where it's like, oh, these people were here and now they're doing their thing and
Yeah.
bringing those ideas to other people. That stuff. So I love the earnestness of that part. No, it's really
yeah,
wonderful. It's a really wonderful thing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that was really yeah. They were just like a really wonderful group of young people, and it was really great to meet them and hear their music. So yeah, and the second one we were doing this performance for the Ecstatic Music Festival a few years back with Rachel Grimes, who's this wonderful pianist, composer. And the occasion for the concert was like the 20th anniversary of Music for Egon Schiele, which was this famous album that her band Rachel's had released, and super influential for a lot of composers we know, I think.
Yeah.
So it was the 20th anniversary of that album, and Rachel was releasing the sheet music for that whole suite to be published for piano trios to play. So we were doing this show, a set of new stuff with her, like two pianos and us, and then the music for Egon Schiele with violoncello and piano. And it was a really fun show. The music is super emotional, and I think like hit a lot of people like at a certain point in their lives when it was like first released. And so we were like talking to some people backstage or after the show, and they were like, yeah, that was like really beautiful. And just wanted to let you know there was a couple sitting behind us who they must have been really into it because they were making out the entire time. And I think that's like the probably first show I've ever played where people were like actually like actively like making out during the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
And like I was like, oh, maybe I just need to be playing more like make out music. Maybe I just need more of that in my life.
That's really great. That's true. I don't think I have I can't draw that experience. I don't have that one. I think you have that one. That's very cool. That's very cool. I'm gonna go. I've been putting on music and I've been bike riding in the city a lot and putting on
Oh,
music. And I
nice.
think got to get out the Rachels again. I've been, just looking for new. Where do I need to go with my bike rides? That's feel like, I may be crying on the sidewalk at some moment. I'm gonna go with that one. That'll be great to revisit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
very, very cool. When we first met this group, we did some touring with this group called Matmos, and they had worked with Rachel's back. That was like the first time we had heard of them,
Oh,
Mm.
cool.
heard Rachel's. That's awesome. Thanks for bringing that back for me. It's really great. Well, it's lovely to talk to you too. I cannot wait. We're gonna be in the same room
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
November
Thanks
4th.
for
Very
coming.
excited about that. I love with these like stories about meaningful music things. I feel like it never comes up like, oh, that time where I played for X hundreds of people was so awesome. It's always these like really memorable, intimate experiences, or just the number of people there is kind of beside the point. And
Yeah.
doing this Brooklyn Bound last week was just really it was really wonderful. It was like a small group of people who were sharing things with each other. It's so meaningful to me. So thanks for jumping in on this one.
Of
Thanks
course.
for
Thanks for
having
having
us.
us.
Absolutely. We're pumped about it. November 4th, 8 p.m. A few of you all can come together in Brooklyn, but everybody can watch on YouTube. Bring the good vibes in the chat. We'll see you then. John and Paula, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All
You
right.
See you
too.
soon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.